The month of Adar, Purim. Most everyone smiles when they hear Purim, a festival of merriment and joy. For me, though, it's been somewhat of a difficult and at times a struggle to really get into it. Back in the early 1990s, I was working at Lorraine Community Hospital. On the psychiatric unit, a patient was admitted, an Oberlin College student, a very observant Jew. With the staff, some of the staff present, he asked on a day in early March if he could be provided with some alcohol so that he could get so drunk that it could not distinguish Haman from Mordecai. I said no. The staff kind of looked at me funny, and I didn't know how to explain what a holiday would be that would welcome drunkenness. I was also head of an alcohol treatment program then, and the idea of drunkenness was really abhorrent and seeming to glorify and also trivialize drunkenness just was not right. Well, some 14 years later, when we joined Shari Tikva, Lori and I decided we were going to learn a lot about the holidays. We had come from a Reform congregation. On the first Purim, I decided to really get into it. I put on an outrageous blonde wig, put some padding in my chest, and put on my shirt, I hope it shows, from the Freud Museum that says, "Analyze me." I sat next to a former patient. As the evening went on, I was looking forward to hearing the Megillah. I had never actually heard it before, and as Kiva Stuhl began to recite it, I realized it was going to be hopeless. There was too much noise and clamor to even follow one or two lines. Over the next few years, I looked to learn more of the story of Purim and read, well, not the Hebrew, but the rest of the English. And I came to the ending, which I don't think I'd ever learned when I was a kid growing up. At the end, the Jews go out and murder some 75,000 people in the outlying towns. This was very difficult for me to understand, and how this fits in with Purim. Are we celebrating the death of people? With the Egyptians and the miracle of the Red Sea, the Lord asked that we tone down any celebrating because human beings had perished. So when Deborah Coleman asked me to give some comments on Adar, there were two things I wanted to look into, to do some studying, some research. One was about drunkenness, and the other is about the killings. As far as the alcohol part, it seems that it begins with Rava in the 4th century, which is over 700 years after the events in Persia. Many have commented that alcohol will, of course, affect the mind, but the idea is not to dull the senses, but to enhance them. Many commentators have said that drunkenness is just not to be followed, and the Shulchan Aruch says drunkenness is a terrible sin since it is likely to bring one to commit indecent acts and other sins. If you go on Google, as I did, to try to look up Jews drinking on Purim, there are actually over 500,000 hits on it. The very first thing that shows up is Rabbeinu Ephraim in the Gemara ruled that the Talmud should reject the obligation to drink on Purim. If we need even a further example of how bad getting drunk can be, there is a story of a rabbi who was stabbed in the neck by another rabbi. But I passed on from the whole question of drinking, because nobody could really condone drunkenness, to what about this whole killing of people that I would see as innocent? If we follow the story, there's reason to believe that if the edict had been transmitted to all the people in the outlying towns, they may well have decided to kill the Jews. So it could start to come up with some type of argument and reasoning to justify the killings in the story of Purim. To justify, perhaps, and then some people may start to get other ideas, taking it even further to an obligation. I want to take a very short digression. 2 weeks before Purim in Bishalah, it ends talking about Amalek. And it ends that the Lord will be at war with Amalek throughout the ages. What I'm leading up to is what happened on Purim Day in 1994. Don't know what could have been going through Baruch Goldstein's mind, but the facts are what happened on that day, on Purim Day. He entered a mosque with Muslims at prayer and opened up gunfire, killing 29 Muslims at prayer and injuring another 124. He was mostly vilified, but actually some Jews had looked at him as some type of hero. At this point, I realized I was getting very far from my intent to prepare for enjoying Purim. I called an old friend, a retired rabbi, who gave me some advice. Aaron, remember when you were a kid and you first heard the story, how wonderful it is? It's a wonderful story. And it's just a story. God is not in it. There's a palace intrigue. The ending is wonderful. The bad guy, Haman, gets hung. There's good songs and good food. And then he gave me another piece of advice. Aaron, just chill out and enjoy. Purim is to be enjoyed. So we now have 14 days to get ready for the enjoyment. I look forward to being there, even though it's going to be virtual. I look forward to sharing it with you. Chag Sameach. Thank you.